Today's lesson is about conversions. We're going to be converting from metric to imperial, and sometimes from metric to metric, or from imperial to imperial. And we'll be looking at lengths, volumes, and different masses. So as you can see, basically, we've got this entire conversion chart that we'll be using today. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually tie in some things that you learned in science class in grade 9 and 10 and 11 about how to cancel different ratios or units. Now, we're going to use our cancellations that we used to use last semester and the year before. We used to use a thing called cross multiplying. Now, when we're talking about conversions, basically we're talking about the stuff that's inside the first column. What we're going to do is we're going to fill out what our conversion is on the first line. So give me a moment and we'll move this document up and we will start doing our calculations. The problem is to convert 13 yards into meters. So here is the rule. Here's how we're going to do this. We are first we're going to state our conversion. So that's A. B. We fill in our conversion. Fill in what we want. Fill in what conversion we want. The next thing that we'll do is we'll go up and find what our conversion is. In this case, we find that we're looking to convert yards to meters, and if I circle it, I'm going to circle this in red for you guys. That is our first conversion, so that is part A of our solution. Now what we'll do is we'll just go back to our problem. So with every problem there are two states, two versions of the calculations that we have to do. We first have to state our conversion, so let's do that. So now that we've done that, now we're going to make sure that our units are going to be set up on the next line. Notice, in this case, we have 13 yards and we're converting to meters. We're going to let X be the meters. Anything that we're looking for is going to be X. And we'll continue doing that from now to the end of the year, whenever we're doing conversions. Now what I want you to imagine is as if we were doing conversions using ratios. So imagine I had a nice line here over this and this. So basically what happens is we've got a section that deals with yards and a section here that deals with meters. Now notice this is 1 yard over 13 is 0.9144 over X. You can write that equation like that if you'd like. You could write it as a set of ratios, or you could write that as just two straight equations. And then what we're going to do is we're going to look at cross multiplying. So imagine this portion represents the bottom of our variables. So now, if I wanted X by itself, technically I'd take the X and I would move it up here, and the 13 I would move up here. So that's essentially cross multiplication that we learned a long time ago. So let's do that. Now the arrows basically say you're joining those opposite things. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to connect and multiply 13 times 0.9144, and we're going to have 1 times x. So now essentially we have 1x is equal to 13 times 0.9144. Next, we have to get rid of the 1, so what we're going to do is we're going to divide both sides by 1. So we have x equaling 11.9 meters. So now what we're going to do is we're going to have to take a look at our conversion chart for part B. And you notice here it says that we have 82 grams going into ounces. So that's this one right here. So let's just quickly circle that. So this one has 1 ounce is equal to 28.35 grams. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go back to our problem and we're going to set up our basic equation. And now what we have to do is we're going to take a look at our original problem here and we're going to label whatever we don't know as x. Then we'll fill in our second portion of the equation. And just like before, we kind of set up a little ratio here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we see what our cross multiplication values are going to be. So now we show them. So we have 1 bracket 82 times 23.85x, and that's because these two go together and then these two go together based on the cross multiplication. Now we have to remove the 28.35 that's here by dividing both sides by 28.35. So let's do that. Now simply calculate this and write x to the right side. And we get 2.9 ounces. Now, anytime you do problems for me and there's lots of work on the sheet, I want you to put a box around the final solution so that we don't have any questions. Now we're going to work on part C. So we're going to try and convert 16 fluid ounces into quarts. So let's go and take a look at our chart. So 16 fluid ounces into charts. So I think that deals with volume, this portion here. So you notice how we have the volumes and the quarts in this middle column here. I'm just going to take that middle column, I'm going to move that down here for us so we can have a good look at it when we decide to do our final solution. So looking at this problem, it's clear that we see that we have fluid ounces to pints, but then we also have pints to quarts, so we don't have a direct conversion. In order to do that, we're just going to start by taking a look at our original starting value. So we're going to take a look at our fluid ounces. And we're going to start with that, and then we'll see what we can do with it. So just like before, we start and we go, we'll write 16 fluid ounces is equal to 1 pint. But what we're going to have to do in order to get this to work is, if you notice on here, if you notice here, we have pints, we have 2 pints is equal to 1 quart. So technically what we're going to have to do with our original problem is make sure that our pints match what the conversion unit is on the left side of this second equation. So in essence, we're going to have to double it. So we have to double both sides of 16 fluid ounces in 1 pint to get, which means 32 fluid ounces is equal to 2 pints, which really means 32 fluid ounces is going to equal to 1 quart. So clearly we have our conversion now. Like before, we're always going to label what we're looking for as X. We'll now set up our equation that we're looking for. And just like before, we're going to set up our ratios. Then what we're going to do is we're going to set up our cross multiplication. Notice we have 32x on the left side. To get rid of it, we're going to divide both sides by 32. And our final answer is x is equal to 5.1 quarts. Now we'll take a look at converting 1,500 feet squared into meters squared. I believe it's going to be a two-step problem. So what I'll do is I'll just adjust the page and then we'll continue. So we're going to have to go back up to our conversion charts and we're going to make sure that we have everything we need and bring it down here. So you notice we have 1,500 feet squared to meters squared. Let's quickly take a look. Now we have something that looks useful. So we have something that kind of looks like what we want. We have 1 foot to 30.48 centimeters. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy that down. So just like before, we had our conversion. So we're going to start with that, right? So this is going to involve 2 steps because we have length converted to meters or centimeters or feet or something like that, some sort of area. Now, here's what you should realize. Every centimeter is 1/100th of a meter. So basically all we have to do is move this decimal 2 places to the right for our centimeters to get the equivalent in feet. So basically we're going to have 1 foot is equal to 0.3048 meters. The difficulty here is we are trying to go from a linear thing into a squared thing. Basically what we're doing is trying to convert these linear things into areas. And in order to do that, all we have to do is square both sides. So what we end up having is 1 times 1, which is 1 foot squared. Now we calculate 0.3048 times 0.3048 to get the value in meters squared, which turns out to be 0.092903 meters squared. Now that we've got what we want, I'm just going to delete this entire chart. As always, we'll label X as what we're looking for. And what we're going to do is we're just going to write out the rest of the problem and see what comes up. So now we've got 1,500 feet squared is equal to X meters squared. We're going to set up our ratio real quick. And then we'll also set up our cross products. Get the following line. And we'll divide both sides by 1, because x times 1 is just, we just got to get rid of it. And we get x is equal to about 139.4 meters squared. Now make sure you put a box around your final work for each one. And now you know what your homework is. Your homework is the conversion homework chart, which I will provide to you, or you will download directly from Schoology.